All right, welcome everyone back to today's episode of Is It Prophecy here on Israel National Radio, Root Sheva, and the show is syndicated as the Messiah Hour on YouTube. Go to YouTube and type in Messiah Hour with Ari Louis and subscribe to the YouTube channel. It is free to do so. We're continuing the conversation with Rabbi David Katz of SoulMazal.com. Rabbi Katz, one of the things I'm curious about with this discussion, it appears that where you stand in Kabbalah really weighs in on the Mashiach discussion. Is that true?
Yeah, it's we talk about the generations get lower and lower, and this is a fallout of Mashiach. Once, for example, the Vilna Gaon says we've entered the time of a pre-time almost 1740 began 6 a.m. on the paradigm clock, 6 days of creation. We want to get to Shabbos. So what that does is it creates either you're going to continue looking now. Or you say, okay, we're basically there. I can cruise. So it's like a rocket going up, right? The rocket goes, but it drops parts of its tank, right, as it climbs. So you're losing people and climbing at the same time. That's a natural property, just of the generations unfolding, getting closer to Mashiach. So you're going to have the regression of the generations and the climbing, I guess, of the elite few. And with that said, the goal is to ultimately remove idolatry from our Kabbalah, which it's not an essential problem in that we are idolaters. What it is that the Jewish people, on the real innards of the learning of the Torah, right, the part that is the most sublime, we need to get clarity of what does it mean that on that day God is one and His name are one. The name is one. So when you have Kabbalistic clarity, meaning that the Jewish theology is mapped out clearly, there's no more arguments. Everyone can see the truth. I mean, this is the truth we're looking for. What is a Jew? What is a non-Jew? What is the nature of both? The relation of both? One's relationship with God and the world. The real hard questions that nobody wants to deal with. Not about, how do you put your right shoe on first in the morning. We're talking about the real core existential issues. And those need ironed out. And those have begun being ironed out. Call it the Zohar, further on to the Arizal, Vilna Gaon, and Chassidus. And here we are, trekking to the end of time. And eventually, the Kabbalah will be an expression that is used as a means of communication of what is the nature of God and our roles with God. It'll be able to be expressed and communicated. That would be called the Torah of the Messiah. And synonymously, inside that dynamic, you're going to have a clear vision of what Mashiach is and all these things. But that's when the Rambam says, by the time that happens, it'll already happen. And so looking back, we'll be able to go over the trail of breadcrumbs and see how it happened. So it'll all culminate in that apex in time when we have the coming of Mashiach ben David. In the meantime, you're having that birurim, the clarification process, and as it heats up towards the end, that's called Mashiach ben Yosef.
Okay, again, this is a prophecy on Israel National Radio, Root Sheva. The show is syndicated as the Messiah Hour on YouTube. Let's talk about the dates. The Rambam talks about different kapsim. What exactly is that? What do the dates have to do with this process?
So dates have been like just another parallel theme with the whole Mashiach timeline. The Talmud says Mashiach ben David will or won't come in such a generation. The book of Daniel, the time is written there. Right? That's explicit. We know that. But Daniel was told to cover it up and go to your portion and wait for the end of days. The Rambam says don't really bother with the times of the end because it's narishkeit when you get involved in that. And this is, what the Rambam is saying is don't try to find, the time, like capital THE. Because it turns out there are many ketzim. There are many ends. And the ends have come at different points in time. Were we to be meriting the redemption or not? So I think the Ramban speaks of a time, Rashi spoke of a time, Sajid Gaon spoke of a time, and all the times have come and gone. The Rambam is saying, don't get fixated on calculating the end, like the absolute end. But again, there were lesser ends where if we were meritorious or not could have been, and those have been examined all through time. Where we are now, we're coming towards another series of end dates. The Zohar has spoke of what appears to be the time we're in now. Some would argue the opposite, based on interpretation and external knowledge and affairs. But again, the way it looks now, we seem to be in at least a favorable time. Everything's adding up. The players are there. And again, now it becomes very apropos. Do we just want to go around and saying Mashiach now? Or do we want to investigate and find out what should we look for? Are there prophecies being fulfilled? Is there something to think about? Or do we just put our nose down and say, we don't care. We just want Mashiach now?
All right. Now let's talk about the concept of Mashiach ben David or Mashiach ben Yosef as far as the difference between the two of that particular concept.
So again, if I just want Mashiach ben David now, all right, I'm going to go around saying, hey, Rabbi Katz, how's it going? Mashiach now. Like, what am I doing? Right? That's kind of like the rocket ship falling apart, and I'm down here. I've given up, right? I'm not going to choose to really do anything. Just hang on, and I'm going to tell everyone, look, wait for Mashiach. Mashiach's coming. Look, wait, and if I get a little deeper, and I want to say Mashiach ben David, what does that really mean? We don't really have much to say to, exactly how Mashiach ben David comes. What is, who is Mashiach ben David? How is Mashiach ben David? The Talmud says, Mashiach ben David only comes in a certain generation. And these are kind of, ambiguous pictures that we're supposed to look for. I think one of them was, like when the fish are dried up in the sea was one of them. And the tractate of Sanhedrin. So when the oil spill happened in the Gulf, remember that, the whole oil spill?
Right.
And people were saying, you see, the fish are dead, therefore Mashiach ben David's got to come. And you get a lot of that. And that's really all there is. But when you go Mashiach ben Yosef, then you have two separate scenarios of pitfall. One is, I never heard of Mashiach ben Yosef. Maybe you're talking about Jesus, and obviously that's not kosher. So I don't know what to do with that. Or you're going to get super Kabbalistic, and then in that case, anybody and everybody could be Mashiach ben Yosef. Right? So that's one of the tendencies of people. And I guess the third option really is to follow the true path. What is the messianic process? Where we are today, pretty much, unless you're blind, you see something's going on. Even if it's not going to be finished tomorrow, we know the Vilna Gaon, as far back as his time, he said it began, and I think we can all pretty much vouch for today that we can say that at least the same thing, right? That at least today we know something's going on, and we're at least living something to hand over to the next generation. I mean, we're definitely a part of what came before us, and building on top of what we receive, and we're giving over the momentum to an eventual messianic revolution. I mean, that should be clear to everybody that we're part of something at least, if not at the very end of the process of that, which would culminate in the revelation of what we're all waiting for, Mashiach now.
All right. Again, this is a prophecy on Israel National Radio, Root Sheva, and the show is syndicated as Messiah Hour on YouTube. Go to YouTube and type in Messiah Hour with Ari Louis and subscribe to the YouTube channel. It is free to do so. Again, we're talking with Rabbi David Katz of SolMazal.com. Rabbi Katz, whenever the Gemara says Mashiach, is it always Mashiach ben Yosef or Mashiach ben David?
So this is what causes the ambiguous nature and even disdain for Mashiach, right? Again, if I say Mashiach now, which one am I talking about? Right? You didn't even give me you didn't give me a chance to guess.
Right.
You don't even want me guessing. And if I say Mashiach ben Yosef, you say, no, sorry, Mashiach ben David. So the point is that in the sources, and particularly Sanhedrin, There's a chapter in the Tractate Sanhedrin, which I mentioned a little bit ago. That chapter is called Chelik, and that is the chapter of Messiah. It's the chapter in the Talmud that primarily deals with that. And they say that any time it says Mashiach without any further attachment of Ben David or Ben Yosef, which, by the way, as I said, Ben Yosef only appears once, and it's not here, it's in Sukkah. So we would think that here in Sanhedrin, it's always Ben David. But in reality, when it says Mashiach, you always have to think, is it Ben Yosef or is it Ben David? And this is really the guide to understanding Messianic literature, is understanding what is being spoken of. For example, Elijah. If somebody had a revelation of Elijah, was it the man himself? Was it in your mind? Was it a revelation? Right? There's mystical books that deal with how to understand what does it mean revelation of Elijah, which often is a messianic revelation that accompanies a revelation of Elijah in the mystical books. So whenever you see anything along these lines of Elijah, Mashiach, I don't know some of the other ones, I guess, Hagoel, the Redeemer, all these different names and titles and descriptions, and even the prophecies, you have to understand what the options are before you can fill in the blank. And again, to just assume Mashiach now, all right, this one's for you, that would be a Marshawn Lynch interview, right? Jewish terms, right? When is Mashiach coming? We want Mashiach now. Which Mashiach do you want? We want Mashiach now. So, very Marshawn Lynch-esque as a preview to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Marshawn Lynch gave a very short interview at Super Bowl week. He didn't really want to say anything. He was contracted to speak for 3 minutes, and once 3 minutes was up, he left. Meaning the NFL rules told him you have to sit there for 3 minutes. So 3 minutes and 1 second, he got up and left. Just so people.
And he said in the interviews, he says the same thing each time, over and over and over again.
Right. Absolutely. All right. So understand that concept, meaning of why is it that that particular difference in what the Gemara says. What about as far as stop looking for a particular point? Because a lot of people, when Mashiach is coming, or they want Mashiach to come, they look for a specific time or time period. So talk about that concept.
So this is why the dates are trouble. Because, first of all, you lose hope, right? Mashiach's coming tomorrow at 3 o'clock. So tomorrow at 3 o'clock, you look and say, didn't come. See, everyone's wrong. Bye. Right? And it doesn't work that way. 2012, people really thought something was going to happen like the movie. It doesn't work that way. Judaism is not about a little tiny dot that you say, now. I mean, even Shabbos doesn't come in on a dot, right?
That's right. It's
always a time frame. Everything is a time frame. So the Messiah is a time frame, and not just one time frame. The Talmud says that how do you show wisdom to the nations? And the answer is when you display a breadth of knowledge of tekufot, which is intervals or orbits or spans or time frames. And wisdom is just naturally contained in that concept. In Kabbalah, there's something called tohu and tikkun. Tohu is like the idea of dots. This attribute, that attribute. Tikkun is rectification, whereas tohu means chaos. It's the repair of chaos. It's the elongation of what was chaotic, right? When you come home and you see your house a mess on Erev Shabbos, that is a point when you in your mind said, oh man, this is horrible. Now, the tikkun, the repair of that, is when you take that chaos, this is a mess, until you are engaged in lengthening the mess into something clean. And anybody that's prepared for Shabbos knows that's how it is, right? You don't know how you're going to get the day done. You just know you're in trouble. It's 9 a.m., you got food to buy, food to cook, things to clean, kids to get, da-da-da-da-dee, da-da-da-da-da. And it's like a flash in your mind, but as the day goes on, you just keep hitting that point and lengthening it to the whole day. And the whole point is, pun halfway intended, that Erev Shabbos as a time frame, you get it all done. And then you come into Shabbos. So same thing with Mashiach. You look for the point by nature, but really when you grasp Messianic light is when you appreciate and are aware of the time frames. And everyone's life has as an life expectation, and you should be able to see in your own personal universe a bit of the time frame of the Messianic time frame that you're a part of. And today we're all part of something. So look, people have a problem finding their own affiliation with Mashiach. Therefore, they say we want Mashiach now. But you are a time frame. Superimpose yourself on the time frame, and you'll start to see how the world is not just points of chaos, but a messianic buildup that you're a part of and one that you can recognize.
All right. Now, again, this is a Prophecy on Israel National Radio at Root Sheva, and the show is syndicated as the Messiah Hour on YouTube. Go to YouTube and type in Messiah Hour with Ari Louis and subscribe to the YouTube channel. It is free to do so. Rabbi David Katz, I'm curious because there's a concept the farther we are away from the temple, the generations go down in Kedusha, they diminish, but I want to know if the opportunity for Kabbalah clarity brightens because it seems like more people are studying Kabbalah nowadays, so talk about that contrast.
So that's it. The closer we get to Mashiach, the opportunity for clarity is huge. And it just, it kills me that people don't see what's going on out there. I mean, look at the whole, okay, let's look at this. Look at Islam, right? Well, we know it's a problem, in terms of, it wants to roll heads, and Jewish heads are not exempt from that. And everyone knows that it's an issue of sorts. But why don't people know that this is part of Geula, a redemption? And the answer is Marshawn Lynch, right? We want Mashiach now. That's all they know. Like, hey, what do you think about the news? Mashiach now. What do you think about ISIS? Mashiach now. What do you think about the shootings in France? Mashiach now. What do you think about Harnof? Mashiach now. It doesn't do anything, right? And then it just turns people off. No one sees what's going on. But when you get into Kabbalah, you'll see there's something called the exile of Ishmael. It is dumbfounding me how many people don't know about the concept of the exile of Ishmael. Right? There's a fifth exile at the tail end of Edom, the west. That is the exile of Ishmael. And now that, by definition, is not a point in time. It is a time period. Now, if we know that we've entered the time period of Ishmael, look on the news. I mean, that's what's going on. This wasn't around when I was in high school, I'll tell you that much. At least, in terms of, every day on CNN. Maybe the Gulf War, but after that, it pretty much was quiet until 9/11, in terms of everyday headlines. In a Kabbalistic view of the universe, you can see, one film of time is the Islamic element of the Torah, and particularly Kabbalah, that talks about it. Then you can talk about the Jews and the returning of the exiles. So if you're looking for Jews to come home, you're not going to find it so easy. But if you pay attention to the Noahide movement, the Ger movement, that Christianity is falling down and they're returning to the Torah, the God of Israel, that is a huge return of the exiles, which is spoken about in Kabbalistic Sfarim. So again, if you're looking for the Jews, points and dots of heads to come back Jewish, you're missing it. But if you go outside the box and you look at what's going on, not only will you see the return of the exiles, but those exiles are bringing down the church in Edom, and what bigger sign of redemption than that? But you would never hear of it because the Pope isn't complaining, and the Catholic Church isn't complaining. But there's a huge Christian world that is not Catholic and not part of the Pope's vision. Otherwise, he would be stopping the Muslims from murdering the Christians. The point is that Christianity in the evangelical realm and the non-Catholic realm is disintegrating, and that a lot of them are beginning to either recognize or outright return to the God of Israel, which is a huge Kabbalistic sign and a big sign of redemption.
All right, last question we have for you, Rabbi. Now, as we start to look for Meshach ben Yosef and bring Meshach ben David closer, do you feel that's happening now? And do you also feel we have to look outside the box to really see those signs?
That's it. It's the non-Jew that's a part of the story. We thought it was only the Jew. It's the Edomite exile. We thought it was Edomite, and then we're finding out Ishmael has a place too. A lot of these things are outside the box. I thought, if I'm Chabad, I thought it was only Chabad. Turns out Rabbi Nachman's not so bad either. The answers are out there. There's one Torah that was given, and we have it. But you have to think outside the box to receive and incorporate what was not indigenous to your little world, right? And so the world's filled with opportunity today to reach out, see another person's point of view, and incorporate it. It's not threatening. It doesn't ruin or negate what you know. It's all an increase of light and ability, and we're getting closer and closer to the end, and you can see how the world's events are unfolding, and we are really coming close, at least to something. At least, our generation is coming into its own. The last generation was born around the time of the Holocaust. I mean, my mother saw the Zionist parades when she was a kid, and how the people died or were coming to America and all the Anglo countries worldwide. And so, they've had their time. They had their big events. They saw Israel formed in 48. They lived their messianic moment. And God willing, they'll live to see the whole thing. But the point is their kids are now witnessing the next stage of that story. And what we're following up on is the creation of the state of Israel. Imagine how potent that is. Since the destruction of the temple, we're back in the land, and now this next generation is starting to take the mantle, and just by definition that we're in the land, we're immensely closer than, let's say, 500-600 years ago. They were still in the depths of Gullus, of exile. Where we are today, the opportunity is off the charts.
All right, that concludes today's episode of Is It Prophecy here on Israel National Radio. The show, of course, is syndicated as the Messiah Hour on YouTube. Our guest this afternoon has been Rabbi David Katz from Sobazal.com. Rabbi Katz, thank you so much for being on today's show.
Thanks for having me back. Pleasure.
Yes, of course, and everyone check out the Rabbi's book, The World of the Ger, which can be found on Sobazal.com. Again, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or any show topics you want me to talk about in the future, or any guests you want me to interview, email me, messiahhour@gmail.com, and we'll try to make that happen. If you want to make a financial donation, my PayPal account is israelsportsradio@yahoo.com. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and have a great day. Be well out there.